Welcome to Discuss With Us podcast, where we are unpacking the world through a Christian lens. I am your host, Darcy Durkowski, along with my husband, Brian, and our intention is to pose topics, trending and otherwise, and unpack them with the help of some research, insights from our different backgrounds, and even some listener input in a way that is thought-provoking and entertaining. So get comfortable, grab your favorite beverage, and discuss with us.
Welcome back to another episode of Discuss With Us.
We are plugged in.
It's recording enabled. I won't do this again.
Yeah, no, it was recording enabled last week. It just didn't pick up our soundboard.
Yeah, well,
which was my bad. I usually double check it.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has since we've done studio sessions. So, okay, so last week we touched on New Year's goals and budgeting, and one of those was trying intermittent fasting. We told the people we'd give an update, so you go first.
It has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
I normally am not hungry for breakfast unless I've done any kind of workout or something in the morning. Like I usually have to force myself to eat. And immediately deciding, all right, we just won't eat breakfast anymore. Now I'm hungry every day. So I don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
What
Other
about
thoughts?
You? I don't mind it.
You traveled a lot last week, so I feel like you didn't get to hone it in as well as I did.
Well, yeah.
So.
But I didn't mind not eating breakfast. I just was hungry, ironic. Like normally I'm not hungry in the morning. I just eat anyways.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of the point, but I don't know.
Yeah. I, on the other hand, I've enjoyed it. Now, these last couple like snow days, weekend, still kind of figuring out how to do the weekend, and then snow days is not. Although we did technically fast today.
Yeah, the hardest thing is to just start eating after you've gotten going.
Yeah. But in my normal week last week, I did really well with it. And I even did better choosing my meals and stuff.
Yeah, I did not do that.
That's what I mean by my having it honed in a little bit more because I was at home, so I kind of could.
I said I'm eating less meals, therefore I eat whatever I want.
Because that's how it works.
Yeah.
But I immediately did notice a little difference on the scale, and I felt like I had more energy.
Yeah, I haven't had either of those things.
Well, there's still time.
You got the whole year.
Yeah. The other thing is, since we're breakfast people and we're cutting out breakfast, we did decide to do breakfast for dinner so we could still, have those foods.
Which we've done that before, especially for the kids, but we've also been eating the same. I made gumbo the other day, and so we've been eating that for both our meals every day.
Yeah.
So I
ready
like
for
it.
Something new.
But yeah. So combine that with we don't eat breakfast right now, so I was
craving
super excited to
make
it. So that was fun.
Yes, it was. So winter prep has been in full force the last few days. We've been busy with that, which is why we didn't get an episode out at our normal time. I just knew it wasn't going to happen, but I didn't even make any announcement because I didn't know when it would happen, honestly. Yeah. But we're hanging in there, doing okay. Tonight's supposed to be the really terrible hard freeze, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Hopefully we're good.
Yeah. But to introduce the topic for today, a couple of days ago, I was thinking about the impending winter weather and stuff and how we would be kind of holed up in the house. And I was thinking to myself, maybe I'll be able to, Brian will be around all day, so maybe I'll be able to get in a little time where I read my Bible instead of just listening, to my podcast or just doing the plan. Maybe I'll sit down and read more. And so then that got me thinking about like favorite Bible stories and stuff. And we got to talking and thought it would be a good topic.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing today. Kind of a fun topic going
If
through
you're still
our.
snowed in tomorrow,
Well,
it'd
yeah,
be
exactly. I
find
think.
yours.
Well, so today was more of a fun snow day. Everybody get out and play in the snow. And tomorrow is going to be straight up hazardous, I
Yeah.
think, for a
Unfortunately, our
while.
kids don't understand that.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
They think the snow's coming
They
back tomorrow.
definitely think there's still going to be snow tomorrow, but yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But wanted to get this topic out for you guys in case it spurs you, in the hopes that it spurs you to, give some thought to your favorite passages
Well,
and
it
or
spurred me, so it
inspires.
worked for
Yeah,
one person.
exactly.
There you go.
Inspires someone to read maybe some of the ones that we list, which we have not really shared a lot about what our favorites are in an effort to be unscripted as always. So we'll see how this goes. Do you want to go first or you want me to go?
We'll go back and forth. You go first.
Oh, okay. Back and forth. I like it. Okay, so the first one that popped into my head because it's been one of my favorites since I was
hope
a
we don't have
kid.
doubles on this.
Oh, probably not. I don't think this would be one of yours because
Okay.
it's more on the women's side.
No.
Um,
Yeah, I skipped those books.
I always liked the Book of Ruth, and I really don't know why, other than it was stories of a bunch of women.
Mhm.
Like all the men died,
Yeah.
right in probably I think the first chapter,
Yeah.
and then it's just the story of the women. And so I think that's why I was kind of drawn to it as a kid, but now as an adult. One of the reasons that I still enjoy reading it is just because of the two things. One, the family devotion.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ruth had no ties necessarily. She didn't have to stay with Naomi and travel back with Naomi.
And more so, it's ironic, like, when you think especially, well, honestly, back then or even today, it would be like, would you, if I passed away, would you stay with my mom or would you be going back to your mom?
Yeah, I know.
Because she went with her husband, her
Well,
dead
and
husband's
they went
mom.
to a different land too, where I think there was like less of a
it'd
chance
be even,
that she finds somebody else,
yeah,
to take care of her, which is again, we've kind of talked in other episodes about how like back then that was, there was no social security or anything.
Well,
like
and
that
you wouldn't
that you
have your own
deposited
place
into.
or anything, like,
Yeah.
because that's the thing. It's not just like, I was. It's ironic you picked that one because I did actually run through there. That's why it's fresh on my mind. It would be like if you and I were from, like, if I was from New York
Yeah.
and you were from here, and instead of staying, because I think, yeah, because they were in the land of her family,
Mm-hmm.
and instead she like would have made the journey back, like complete
Right.
cultural differences.
Mhm.
And New York doesn't even, it'd be going to a different country,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And you just didn't do that back then. Like, you
Yeah.
would go back to your father's house
Right.
and wait for him to find a suitor for you again.
Right. Exactly. But like without hesitation, she went with her.
Well, and part of that was cool. Was Naomi tells her, like, no, go back to your
Yeah.
parents, be with your gods, like, because
Mhm.
it's different country, I guess, different religion. She was like, no, you're it was almost like honoring her husband, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
no, your God's my God. I'll go back to the land of your
Mhm.
family.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like Ruth. That's my first one. So what's one of yours?
Yeah. I will get to where I split hairs. I'm not as deep in the Bible as you are all the time, but so mine are more on the nose ones people are going to know. But my favorite one all time is the wedding at Cana.
Yes.
So for those of you that don't know, that's John 2.
Yes. And we just had it recently. Was it last week?
Yeah. I can't remember if we had it because I did actually write this down. What
No, it
was in the
was,
homily?
yeah, but I think it was this past Sunday.
I didn't know if it was actually that reading or if somehow it
Mm-hmm.
came up in the homily. But
No, it
yeah,
was that reading.
so again, this is one almost everyone is very familiar with, but this is basically Jesus's first public display of a
Yes.
miracle, therefore starting him on his path. Um, and I've always thought that was interesting. And there's just a bunch of different viewpoints you can kind of look
Mm-hmm.
at this from. Most recently, I think I've talked about this on a different episode. I really enjoy um, Mary in his interaction.
Yeah.
And then, especially, I thought The Chosen
Mm-hmm.
did a really good job. Like,
Depicting that.
yeah. And they
Yeah.
have like the flashbacks of
Mm-hmm.
him as a kid through both of their eyes and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And now he's starting and performing his public acts.
Yeah.
And what they said in the homily at our church Sunday was it was talking about how there's always these conflicting things on like, is it okay to not pray to, but pray with
Mm-hmm.
Mary? And it's always hard to like explain that
Mm-hmm.
to a Protestant non-Catholic on what exactly they're doing. And he actually said, I've never thought of it this way, but it's super simple. And he said, the priest said, of course we can ask Mary to pray with us. She told Jesus to turn water into wine. She can tell Jesus, basically your problems.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that
Well,
right?
yeah, kind of. In the what he elaborated on, which I had never thought of this way, was she tells the servants do what he says,
Yes.
and so
And
it's
kind of
really a good,
dismissively, just like do whatever
yeah,
he tells you.
do whatever he tells you. Um, and the priest was saying that's basically what she will always do with us. It's not like she ever takes any of the, I don't know, like the shine or anything. She will always point you to Jesus. Do whatever he tells you. Um, and I liked that way of looking at
Yeah.
it as well. That keeps um, Jesus front and center,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but aided by Mary.
Yeah. So if you're on,
I liked, wait, before you move on, I liked how the priest also pointed out that, Jesus loves marriage and weddings. That's,
mm-hmm,
like that there's no coincidences.
right.
It's
Ah,
not a coincidence that he,
must have been holding a kid during that part. I missed that part. That's good.
yeah.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. So I like that part too. I cut you off. What were you going to say?
Oh, I don't remember now. You're number 2.
Okay. The story of Esther. I'm staying on my women here, women of the Bible.
Some women empowerment
Well,
celebration I didn't know
it's
about.
like as a kid, like you look for yourself. I mean, and as an adult too, but
Mm-hmm.
especially as a kid, you're
Now,
looking for
yeah.
yourself in the scriptures and stuff, and so you are drawn to women. But I like the story of Esther, and I actually brushed up on that, knowing I was going to, because I haven't read it
Yeah.
through in a long time. Um, but I was reading it, and a couple of things stuck out to me. Um, it starts off with the former queen, having been basically like banished because what did she do? Do you remember? She did something right in the beginning that dishonored
Yeah, I did not
him,
run through this one.
dishonored the king, and so he was like, no, we don't. And it goes on this. The whole first part of it is like, well, we have to shut this down, or all the women are going to treat their husbands this way. That's like what it says, which I don't know. It's just funny. And then you get to Esther, who's chosen by the king, and then because her people's lives are all on the line, he's going to go after all the Jews,
Mm-hmm.
because Mordecai didn't bow down to, I don't know how you say this guy's name, Haman.
Oh yeah.
And so they're going to go after, and annihilate all the Jews. And so Esther fasts obviously she speaks with Mordecai, who's fasting as well, and he's like, "You've got to go to the king." She's like, "I can't. That's illegal. I have to wait to be called." And
Mm.
it's like he would call her like every maybe 30 days or so. And she was like, "That's illegal. I can't do that." And he said, you've got to. And so then she says, "Okay, well, I'm going to fast for, I think, like 2 days, have everyone fast with me and pray, and then I'll go to the king. And if I die, I die." That's what she says.
Yeah.
And so, number one, her courage. Number two, I like, and I picked up on this as a kid even, but especially now as an adult, I like that. I like the practice of fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean just intermittent fasting. But I like the idea of fasting, and I wonder if maybe I should like do more of that throughout the year for different things. Like we should bring fasting back, because that was a very regular practice,
Yeah.
obviously back in biblical times, and even
Well,
up until
yeah,
you know
until the 60s, I think.
yeah. So and just what a kind of a powerful act of discipline and keeping your focus on Jesus, and like what's the word I'm looking for? Uniting your struggles with him. So, anyways, I always loved that part of it. And then obviously Esther approaches the king, and spoiler alert, it goes well. But it's also like contrasting the former queen. He has favor on Esther, but and she's still like obviously a powerful woman in this story
Mm-hmm.
that he doesn't just banish. But anyways, so I always like the story of Esther. Very almost like entertaining story.
Okay.
Something that could be turned to film, I feel like. But also just like a lot of lessons in it, I think. Okay, your turn.
My second one is The Prodigal Son.
Yes. I knew
It's
you were
one
going
of
to
my.
have this one in here. You love
That's
the
what I'm
prodigal
saying.
son.
It's just it's
I do too. I didn't list it because I knew you would.
it's another yeah. It's another one that I won't go super far into this because I actually have before, and maybe one day we'll like fully unwrap it.
Do an
But
episode on it.
yeah, because I just think it's definitely my favorite parable out of
Yes.
the whole Bible. It's in Luke. It's chapter 15. Um, really, if I think most of us listening probably know this one, but this is where the father divides up his inheritance amongst his two sons. One stays and works the fields, honors his father. The other leaves, squanders his inheritance, and is desolate, destitute, living amongst the pigs, and then decides like, why am I doing this? The servants live better at my father's house, and
Maybe
goes
he'll
home.
take me back.
Yeah, and the father is just so elated that his son came back at all,
Right.
that he, slaughters the fattened calf, and then the son who'd stayed and worked and honored his father is upset because it's like he was the one doing all the right things, and now the brother who squandered everything is back, and you're slaughtering the fattened calf for him, and
Yeah.
and not for me. I don't even have a goat. And then the father tells him, and the where it always gets confusing, and I actually didn't read this one to brush up on it, so I'm going off memory. Isn't this where the father says, "Who wouldn't leave the 99 for the one," or am I off?
No, I think that's off.
What does he tell him then? About to have to look it up now.
I don't know exactly where you're going. What I like about this one is like every time I read it, I get a little something else out of it, a
Yeah.
little something different. But yeah, I could sit here and think about being the
See, you made me second guess myself. I was right.
Oh, is it right?
What man
My
among
bad.
you who has 100 sheep, and if he will have lost one of them, would not leave the other 99 in the desert and go after the one whom he had lost?
Sorry, I thought that was in like Psalms.
No, you made me like, I was like, oh my God. No, and here, finish your thought and then I'll go back to it.
No, I was just saying, like, I could sit here and ponder being the second son, the one that stayed
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, and
The reason I like this
and
is
you like
because
wrestle with it.
it used to bother me. I used to,
Yeah.
like, this one comes up in church a lot that we read. Probably
Yes.
most people would say the same thing. And as a kid through young adult, I was always just like, what? Like, this one doesn't make any sense. I don't really know why
Yeah.
we read it. I thought, and honestly, I thought most priests did a bad job explaining it. Or it just never sunk in. I don't
Yeah.
know. But, and recently, the last time this came up, I think someone did bring up, like, you know, if you're a farmer, it's actually the opposite. You don't leave the 99 for the one that's
Yeah.
you don't leave the 99 in the desert
Mm-hmm.
unattended to go look for one. But you know, the point is God does.
Yes.
He's after that one.
Yeah.
And the reason now I kind of like it is looking at your life, you can really see like we're not one or the other.
Yes.
We're both
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah. Constantly changing.
Yeah, and so
But
you have to
also-
appreciate both.
Remember the this is a few years ago that I gave the talk at Cowboy Church
Oh yeah,
about like being wild horses versus the ones that
Yes.
are being worked and taken care of and stuff,
Mhm.
and how you can look at it and think that, oh, being a wild horse, you're so free and everything, and you
Mhm.
can just go wherever and do what you want. But the more appealing thing would be to be in God's pasture, getting
yes,
taken care of. Like you're the one that's brought up for feed every day. You're the one that he calls the vet out for. And
exactly. Gets trimmed,
yeah, and
has
it
proper feed.
And it's not to say, to your point, that God wouldn't go out and find the lost horse or the wild horse, but
Well, no, and
what a
that's-
privilege to be in His pasture is
Well,
the
and
point.
I guess that's the thing is like you look and if you identify as a Christian and you go to church every Sunday and feel like you're living your life right, you're obviously going to identify with the son who stays and works.
Right.
And so then by reading this, you, especially when you're young, you're like, well, what the heck? But this is where I think it's tough for some of us to grapple sometimes. Like, everyone can say the words like, oh man, I hope so and so who I know in my life, I wish they'd find God and come over. But but like, it's easy to say that until it's like, but I've been doing all these things my whole life and you've been doing not those things, and now we're both going to heaven, because that's kind of the way to look at it.
Yeah.
And you're not, and we're all both just going to be on equal playing field.
Yeah.
And it's a natural human emotion. This
Yes.
is why I think this one's so fascinating.
Yeah. But I think that for us, it's that we as Christians, like, we enjoy the kingdom of God here on earth,
Yes.
and life in abundance, whereas obviously a non-Christian wouldn't have all.
No, I
Doesn't
think
have all
you'd
those
be
tools and
you'd
peace.
be lacking.
Yeah.
There'd be a hole in you, and that's like I said. The more you read this, it's where the father tells
Yeah.
the son, he's like, everything I have is yours, and
Yeah.
you're in my house with me.
Right.
And so that's
other thing
the
is-
vantage point you're supposed to look at this.
Yeah. The other thing is, I remember, I don't know if it was a preacher or my parents or probably both, but I remember the saying growing up, if you ever think that the preacher is talking about someone specific, or you think like, oh, I wish so-and-so could hear that, you probably need it more. That was
true.
like always ingrained in my head. And so I think the other thing with this passage is, if you are sitting here identifying with the second son and being like, "Ugh, you probably are with the pigs right now."
Maybe so.
To your point of being it, we're always both of them.
Yeah.
You're going back and forth. It's not like we get separated from God, quote unquote. Nothing can, except for ourselves, our own, we make our own
Yeah.
choices and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get comfortable. Keep pursuing God.
Yes.
Okay.
Your
Anything
turn.
else? Okay, my turn. My next one is Psalm 139. And,
Ooh,
it's
specific
talking.
psalm.
Well, again, going back to my youth, and I was a little older. I was a teenager, and we memorized this psalm. I
Oh.
do not have it memorized now.
No,
You
come
looked
on.
like you looked at me with those big eyes, like I was
Yeah.
about to spout something off.
Let's
No,
do it. June does it.
I know he does, but this one is about how I knew you before you were in your mother's womb,
Okay.
fearfully and wonderfully made, all those things. And so it's just the whole psalm is a really beautiful psalm. So I've always liked that one. Short and simple. Go read it. Okay, you're up.
Oh man.
Quick turnaround.
Yeah, I was not. I thought I was gonna have some time to figure this one out. Well, I know what it is. I'll be perfectly honest. I did not finish reading all of it.
Okay.
But it's one of. This is even going to be like it'd be lying to say this is one of my favorites. But what I was doing was the first two, Cana and Prodigal Son.
Mm-hmm.
Those are more well known, and those are two of my favorites. So
Yes.
then I was like, let me go grab something from the Old Testament.
Mm.
But I didn't want to do another like, oh, let's do Moses or or Abraham. I was like, let's
Dig a little deeper. You were looking for that B-side story.
Yes, I was. I got a couple of the hits. I need a B-side so everyone thinks I know stuff. Oh man, he likes that. So I was flipping through the Old Testament a little bit and playing a game. What page can I land on and see where that takes me? But so I will say, I was running through, and see, I figured, I actually thought you would say Job. So I glanced through Job. I think Job's always a hard one to read, honestly, because it's just like, oh my
I don't know
gosh.
in what life you think I would choose Job.
Well, I don't know, because we've talked about it recently.
Well, yeah. I actually had that one listed under a different category we'll get to later.
So I was looking there, but I was like, I can't pretend I like this one. This one's hard to read.
It is.
And so then I had Daniel on here, and there are like my favorite part of Daniel is when it's Nebuchadnezzar, isn't it?
Yes.
And he puts those dudes in the furnace, and the furnace just like they try to make it too hot, and it blows up everyone.
Do you know their names?
Oh God, they have like
There's a VeggieTales tune that I could.
that's like that reel I sent you.
Yeah.
I won't share this
No.
on the podcast, but I sent you that reel. It's
Yeah.
funny.
Do you know their names?
No, one starts with an A.
No, it doesn't. Oh, okay. Yes, it does.
Well, yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, say that one. I want to
can't.
hear what you think.
I'm not going to try to
Okay,
pronounce
fine.
it. Sing the VeggieTales song.
No, I'm not. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yes.
Okay, carry on.
And the angel comes and they don't get burned in the fire, and everyone
Correct.
else does. But so I was like, I could go with that one just because I know it. Anyways, the one. So that's a good one. I guess that'll be a freebie.
I like that one because I've seen this on like Instagram deals and heard it in different sermons about this, but the I think it's interesting that it's not like the angel comes and like puts the fire out or
No,
anything.
I know.
It's
Well,
just with them.
that's yeah, I know. And,
Yeah.
and they just pray, and the fire doesn't
Well, I think
burn
it's a
them.
good lesson there.
Well, I know, but it is kind
God
of
doesn't always quench your fire. He just will be with you.
yeah. Well, and like I said, the reason, even as a younger person, I found it funny because I think they light it like 7 times hotter than normal to
Yeah.
make sure they burn these dudes to a crisp because they won't worship Nebuchadnezzar's gods. And
Yeah.
it's like I envision like an act. Specifically, what comes to mind is something from like Fast and the Furious, just like completely off the walls. Like it just blows up everyone around the furnace except the dudes that were supposed to in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's like something Vin Diesel would do. I don't know why that came to
I
mind.
don't know, but I'll never read it the same without Vin Diesel as
Yeah. That's the freebie though. The one
Okay.
I'm going with is and this will be curious because I think I found a B-side. Have you ever read Tobit?
No.
So
Only just the readings that we've had. I may have read some of it, but that's one of the books of the Bible that I didn't grow up with.
that's funny because I always thought those were in like grouped together.
No.
I did not. I just learned something. I didn't know they were scattered through. I thought there was like just a section that was out.
No, I don't think so. I don't remember
No,
the
it
exact
can't be
order,
because
but no,
Tobit's in the middle.
yeah.
All right. Well,
Let's fun fact this, because here's a common misconception that, like, where did there are misconceptions that Catholics just wrote these books themselves and added them in later,
the book wasn't long enough, so people were getting through it too fast.
and there's a lot more history than that.
It's a
like they were,
director's cut.
yeah, they were included in the Bible, and then the way they verified these, this is the way I understand it. The way they verified these is to find them in 3 separate texts to
Yes.
make sure that they were
Authentic.
And I can't remember the languages exactly. Greek, Latin,
Hebrew, and Latin, I think.
Okay. We're guessing on that, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that sounds right. And they couldn't find one of the texts for those. I don't remember which one it was.
How many is it? Is it 7?
6, I think.
Okay.
6 books. So then they like pulled them, and then they found the text later, and so they
put them back.
Yeah, during the Council of Trent. Mm-hmm. What is interesting is I think up until, I'm going to say somewhat recently. I don't know if it's, and when I say somewhat recently, it could be as late as the 1600s, but
that's still somewhat recent.
I mean, in the scheme of like biblical times, that's recent. I'll have to look that up. I can't remember, but most other churches still had them included as well. It was more recent that they were pulled.
Oh yeah. No, that's true.
Okay. Anyway, Tobit.
Well, then that's gonna make this. I didn't go B-side. I guess I went C-side, but
Catholic.
This is like the bonus track off an unknown album.
C-side for Catholics.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
carry on.
Well, then this one's hard because Tobit may not be in everyone's Bible, but if you were interested, I would say Tobit is almost like a slightly better version than Job.
Okay.
Is almost the best way to kind of describe it. So the reason, so I'm literally flipping through the Bible, and I was like, I think I like Tobit. Let me look in here.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the very beginning you're reading, and he was just a really fear of the Lord was like ingrained in this dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you would, I mean, he was definitely just really obedient, but definitely like fearful. Like it was like, I got to do this because I don't want to get smited. And what I liked is, I'm trying to find it, and you went way too fast on your psalm, but somewhere in here, he just did a really good job of like, they weren't they were poor, but it was mainly because if he had something extra, he was giving it away.
Mm-hmm.
If he was able to do something to help someone, he was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And all the time, he was just like, this is what God wants me to do. If there was food that, as Jews, they weren't supposed to eat, he wouldn't partake in it, even
Mm-hmm.
if he was hungry. Um, just doing all the things. And one of what kind of caught me this time catching up on it, um, I can't remember who was, it may have been, I forget who was killing um, sons of Israel, but he was burying them.
Mm.
And the king didn't want him doing that. And he was like doing it at like midnight. He
Mm.
would sneak out, and they were killing people because of it, trying to figure out who it was. And he was making sure like people were buried the proper way, taking good care
Right.
of them. And so then they were after him, but he had done all these good things. So people were hiding him and his family.
Mm-hmm.
And then his son, probably the reading you're talking about is, I think his son is Tobias. Is that right?
I think so. Sounds right.
And so, anyways, so he's doing all these things, and then he gets blinded by it says and this is kind of funny to just think about in the old days. It says he was sleeping, I think, and swallow, I guess,
Oh,
pooped on him,
yeah.
and so then he was blinded. Um, and then so he sends his son to go. He had lent in the first chapter. He lends out 10 talents
Mm-hmm.
to a dude in another city, and he tells his son to go collect on it. Um, and his son like has no idea where he's going. And then Raphael the angel accompanies him, and they catch this giant fish. And the angel tells him cut out the heart and the liver and forget some other organ. And one of the organs he cuts out is, I think that's what heals his dad.
Mm.
And then one of the organs is how, golly, I'm not going to think of her name, but he ends up wedding the. This is the reading I think you're talking about. This is the one we typically read, is where the girls had like 7 husbands and they've all died by a demon. And um,
Mm.
when he marries her, he can't be with her for like 3 or 4 days or something. He has to burn what's this fish he gets. I don't know. It's just a cool story.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So I was like, oh, I didn't I didn't realize how deep of a dive it is, but it's a good one. If it's not in your Bible, I get it, but maybe you can find it on the internet because it's an interesting story.
Yeah. There you go. Back on me.
Can you get one? Can you get one like that?
No. This is my final one.
All right.
The whole book of James.
Oh, James is
Because
like,
I would sum him up as like tough love.
yeah, well, it's like
And
punish yourself and never come close, yet also is good stuff to think about.
yeah, it's
James
tough
is
love.
a hard read because of that, though.
Well, I like it though. It's like convicting in all the right ways, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I did a Beth Moore study on it many years ago, probably like 10 years ago now. And it was a really good study. Obviously, Beth Moore does a great job. But it was super interesting. And James is another one of those that you can just read over and over and over, and you can know the passages. And then the day that you're reading it, it's just still like, oh, like I said, it's convicting, which is healthy. So I put the whole book of James. Do you have any more? Or are you done?
No, but I did. You gave me just enough time to.
Oh, I skipped one.
Oh, good. Keep going.
I just realized. I have a like very, I don't know, like personal connection to Luke 2, the story of Jesus' birth. Because when I was little, we would always read Luke 2 before we opened presents at my nanny's house. And so that was always ingrained. That's always what we did. We would sit down and read the whole chapter before we started any of the gift giving and stuff like that.
Ah,
And I think we even did it at my other grandparents a couple of times too, like reading through Luke 2. And then so as I was in, I don't know what grade, but elementary school. Um, we did, I guess it was like some kind of talent show. And I memorized Luke 2
Well,
through like, I don't know.
well, let's have it.
No.
All these, everyone out here is like, this girl claims to have memorized all these things, and she didn't even know
I
that
did.
Luke 15 has leave the 99 for the one. She said that was in the Old Testament.
I thought it was. It probably is somewhere. No, Luke 2. It's like in those days in the land of.
Hey, okay, here we go.
No, that's it though. But yeah, I did that all the way through when the angels are singing glory. And that's it. But I just have a very like a personal affinity to Luke 2. It's very nostalgic for me.
Yeah.
And I read it to our boys on Christmas morning
Yes.
before we go open gifts.
Very nice. So while you were doing that, you actually gave me time. So, because everyone's on the edge of their seat, like, I got to figure out where this Tobit book is. So if you do have it, it's chapter 4. If you don't, just bear with me. But this is why I like it. So Tobit's blinded now.
Okay.
And he's sending this is, I guess, before he sends his son. I don't know. He's basically just giving his son like life advice. I think he thinks he's going to die.
Okay.
So he says, and he said to him, "My son, hear the words of my mouth and set them like a foundation in your heart. When God will receive my soul, bury my body, and you shall honor your mother all the days of her life. For you are obliged to be mindful of what great perils she suffered because of you in her womb. But when she too will have completed the time of her life, bury her near me. Yet for all the days of your life, have God in your mind, and be careful that you never consent to sin or overlook the precepts of the Lord our God. Give alms from your substance, and do not turn away your face from any pauper. For so it shall be that neither will the face of the Lord be turned away from you. In whatever way you are able, so shall you be merciful. If you have much, distribute abundantly. If you have little, nevertheless strive to bestow a little freely. For you store up for yourself a good reward in the day of necessity."
Oh, I like that.
I know. So when I made it that far, and I was like, yes, I do like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, take that in. There's a whole lot of goodness in there.
Yes. Very good. Okay. You said that was it, though? You don't have any more?
I gave you a freebie with Daniel. I guess.
No, I know. Okay, I'll move on to my final question that I didn't share with you. Surprise.
Typical.
What excerpts or stories don't you like, and why?
I'll
go first and give you a minute to think about it. I struggle with Job.
Yeah, Job's hard.
It's hard to glean. You read other stories, even like you just said with Tobit. It's like there's a story there, there's an ending, there's a lesson, something pretty easily drawn from it, maybe multiple things drawn from it, maybe, very dynamic. Job, you read and there's no outright, it's like movies that end very kind of open-ended and
yeah, that's true.
Or with an ending that you're kind of like, oh, was that all worth it? And I've recently read through Job in my Bible in a Year with Father Mike Schmitz, and I just struggle with it. Number one, it's just hard to read because all of Job's friends the whole time are just like telling him, or for a lot of the time, are just telling him like, you must have done something wrong. And he's like, no, I didn't. And then they're like, no, but you had to, like.
Well, and go back to, here's the thing, go back to the beginning of Job. And it's like Job and Satan are talking, and
God and Satan.
Yeah, God and Satan are talking about Job.
Right.
And what is it? God,
Well, Satan's like, well, he's only good because you bless him,
yes.
basically.
Yeah.
And
And
God's
then
like,
God says, well, watch this.
yeah, well,
Poor
or
Job
no,
just
he
has
just says like, well, do with him what you will, just spare his life. And
yeah.
that's basically what happens. So yeah, it's just a difficult one. But I like this almost could be like a whole nother topic for us. Because I was thinking about this the other day. You see, I really like the way that, and I don't know if this is, I don't think it's just a Father Mike Schmitz thing. I think this is maybe Catholic Church terminology or just church teaching in general. I'd
Mm-hmm.
have to look that up. I'm not really sure. But he talks about how you see God's perfect will
Mm-hmm.
and you see God's permissive will. And
Okay.
so God's perfect will is obviously his perfect will, like what he wants to happen. But the reason there is permissive will is because he allows us free choice. And so we can, like, get off on paths that God probably didn't always
Right.
intend, but also always knew about. It's one of those things that's really hard to wrap our head around, right?
Yeah.
But that would be permissive will. And so some of these things, it was, I can imagine if you are grieving something, someone going through struggles that you might read through Job and with the right direction, maybe
Well,
find comfort in it,
no, that's what I
But
was gonna say.
in the fact that, because what Father Mike was getting at is he was like, you look in the end, you're looking for an answer, and like why God allowed this to happen, and the answer is just God. That's it. Like there's no other lesson to be learned other than God is with us.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think you and I, and I won't be ashamed of it. We haven't had some crazy cross to bear.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's why this is harder to read, and probably for most people. I'm not saying if you've gone through something like all of a sudden, like, oh, Job's my favorite book, but I try to, because there's a bunch of stuff in here that you read, and A, you're either like, I don't even know why this is here, or B,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I really don't know why this is here because Job's just rough.
Yeah.
But I think about it in the perfection that the book is put together, that there's something there for everyone at
Yeah.
anything that, like, there's an answer in that book for anything that could fall upon you in
Yes.
your life.
Yeah, and there's other lessons to be learned too. It's
Oh
not
yeah,
like there's not. Like I remember somewhat recently we talked about how Job's friends were initially very good to him. They just came and like sat next to him and fasted with him and like grieved over
yeah.
his losses with him without saying a word. And then the lesson is that where they started screwing up is when they started talking.
Which is
There's
so
really
true.
something to be said there.
Yeah.
So there's lessons and stuff. I guess I'm just getting at that's a tough book.
No, it
That's
is.
but I also do think that it is very healthy. When you come across something that's tough to read or you can't find, the meaning yet, come back to it, read it again, or tuck it away for another day when it might make more sense to you. But wrestling with it is a good thing. On that note, what's something that you struggle with in the Bible?
I know. Here you go.
You could even say, I mean, we talked about the prodigal son earlier. Like one of the reasons you like it, I think, is because you just almost struggle with it every time you read it, which
Yeah.
is what's
No,
kind of beautiful about it.
yeah, it's what I like about it. Um, Revelations has
Oh
always
yeah,
been tough for me. Like I can't even hardly speak on it because I've never made my way all the way through it.
yeah,
It's hard to read.
yeah.
So I guess I'll throw that
No,
out
that's a
there.
good one.
I actually, this is so ridiculous because I only wrote 4 things down on the paper, but um, go. I'll get my last one out in a minute. What else do you have?
Oh, that's it.
Okay, then I'll segue with it like this. This will be smooth. Watch this. So, kind of the point here was, these are some stories or books that we found interesting out of the Bible. maybe something to go dabble in. But if you are like me and struggle sometimes, like where do I even start, anything like that, the one thing that it worked for me thus far, I decided, you know what, I'm going to start, and I made it through the first few chapters today just while we were thinking about it. Acts of the Apostles.
Hmm.
It's a good place to start because it's picking up. Well, my favorite chapter 2 is Pentecost,
Mm-hmm.
when they receive the Holy Spirit and kind of go out, and all of a sudden they can understand the tongues of
Yeah.
everyone else, and it's freaking them out. And then
Mm-hmm.
they it's just kind of literally what they were doing after the resurrection of Jesus. And
Yeah.
so that's actually where I'm going to start now. So this episode worked for at least one person. But if anyone wants to start in the same way, that's, I kind of was like, you know what, this would be good. I'll make
Mm-hmm.
it through all the acts, and then the gospels and stuff. You probably have at least some reference,
Knowledge of,
yeah,
yeah.
and so that can almost be hard because you can make it through that like skipping stuff, almost like, oh, I
Yeah.
read this. So that's why, like, I mean, I've read a lot of excerpts from Acts, but never just like straight through.
Yeah.
So
No, that's a good one. I'm following the Bible in a year very, very, very slowly.
yeah, that was last year. Where are you?
I know. But I'm plowing ahead with it because I'm done with Genesis and Job and on to others. Um, and I am enjoying it because there's so much more depth in the uh, genealogy of Jesus
Mm.
and others that has been pointed out through the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you're struggling with those books, I would say find some kind of like study to help support and make it interesting and
Yeah, I
connect the
almost think you
dots.
have to,
Yeah, I think you
because
have to
I will not be able to do that.
to get something to really get something out of it. I mean, God can work with anything, but I would say He's provided some pretty good studies
Right.
over the years. So yeah, we hope this inspires you to go read through or study or
Mm-hmm.
just reflect on one of these passages or another one that you may like. I'm sure I will put a comment box up for your favorite Bible stories on our Instagram.
Tell us your favorite part of Tobit.
Yeah. Our Instagram is at discuss underscore with us.
Yep.
Always.
You made it. Why are you looking at me?
Yeah, I know. So yeah, hope it inspires you in some way, and hope you can be under a blanket tomorrow,
Yeah.
either listening to this podcast or
You're in the South and you're cold. Get a fire, a blanket, and
the Bible.
I'll be in Acts.
Yeah,
and finishing Tobit.
I'll be finishing Esther. I made it almost all the way through, so
No more snowball fights, but
yeah.
all right. Well, as we have unpacked everything in the Bible, or at least a little bit of it,
Yeah.
you go discuss.